Okay, good morning everybody to this inside day. And welcome to the council chamber. Just before officially open the meeting, just some acknowledgements first, and also just how this morning will run. So just like to acknowledge you all around the table, our staff, last regulatory meeting, Regulatory Services Committee for the year. Of course, will be followed by His Worship's meeting, 2 in 1 day, followed by other meetings and workshops, so full day ahead of us. But yeah, just like to acknowledge Russell, you and your team and the whole Kawerau District Council whānau, so that includes everybody in the job and the role. Also to our local residents, ratepayers, and that's whether it be residents or commercial, all important to us. And of course, our contractors to council, Russell, and our essential services in town. I think it's really important to note that everybody has a safe and good Christmas. And on that note, just a slight change with the regulatory meeting first up. Pastor Kingy is in today, so we've asked him if you kindly do the prayer to open the day for us. And acknowledgement to you too, Pastor Kingy, for that as well, for your time, because time is important and we acknowledge that, so thank you. So no further ado, yes, we'll ask for everybody to be upstanding, and we're in your hands, Pastor Kingy.
Ki tō mātou mati niu te rangi, ka whakamoemiti nā honere ngā kroria ki a koe. E te ariki mātou aroaro me tō whakawāhinga e whakaki tēnei hui ruanga. Aka pātai ki au ki a koe, hei mana ki tio ki tēnei whare, tō tātou mea kahurangi o Kawerau, me ngā kaiarahi o tēnei kaunihera, me o rātou whānau katoa, kia me te tau e pai, puta noa, ngā whakatau katoa e ai ki tō kupu, o tēnei kirimite, me te tauhau, I roto te ingo o iu karaiki. Heavenly Father, we give you all the praise, the honor and the glory. Lord, may your presence and anointing saturate this council meeting. Father, I ask that you bless this house, the Honourable Mayor of Kawerau, and the leaders of this council and their families, that your will be done in every decision made according to your word for this Christmas and the new year. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Good, thank you, Pastor Kingy. So we have one apology for the meeting committee with Councillor Rangahika. So can I call for a mover for that item? Thank you, Councillor Kingy. And we have a second of His Worship. Thank you. All those in favour of that apology?
Aye.
All those against? Apology accepted. Any declarations of conflict of interest with this agenda committee? There being none, we will move straight into part A, regulatory, item number 1 of your report this morning. Monthly report, pages 1 through to 4. This is for regulatory and planning services for the month of November.
I just have a few points, Chair. I notice on page 2 that we have a water quality bathing sign at Boyce Park. Is this just a general sign, or is it because there is some slight contamination in the water there, please?
This sign is just a general sign, but it's to show water levels if there are contamination. So if the levels rise, the sign will be adjusted to show that it's not safe for swimming.
Oh, right. Okay. It was just sort of a new measure and I just wondered. Yeah. Good, thank you for that. And I do like your little sign, license to occupy for the business people in item 4. I think that's a great initiative. Done. The other concern that I had was on page 3 in 62. And 6.2, sorry. And I wonder if the whole of New Zealand is liquefaction. because I sort of found it a bit difficult to think that we were liquefaction here. Yeah.
These studies have been conducted across New Zealand because everyone in New Zealand is in the same boat. The reports show, I've actually got a map here that shows where there's concern of liquefaction in the area.
Right.
If you'd like me to pass these round.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Because I see it was a desktop operation rather than a come out and have an actual look, but I just thought, you know, with our type of soil, it seemed a bit. You know, concern.
The report provides a lot of information about how the desktop assessment was done, and it's based a lot on the land types that we have.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
So in the picture I've just shown you, everything marked in yellow is deemed that there's a possibility of liquefaction. So there was a few things that went into that, and that was soil types, previous issues in the area where liquefaction has been identified. And the testing at that level is just to show three things. Either there's a possibility of liquefaction, there is, and that's where we fit in most of Kawerau, and then there's no concerns, and then above again is there's a high concern of liquefaction, and it's purely being done to assist with building compliance, to make sure that when houses are built, they have the correct foundations. So if there ever is an issue, the houses will be of a better structure and have less issues.
You're probably hearing quite a surprise. You're very quiet around the table.
Gee, I just have to say something here because it was a desktop operation. It's just typical of consultants, overpaid and under-delivered. You've got the whole of the community here is actually under threat. I'd hate to see what goes to the northeast of this map. All I know is that in 1987, this is not a desktop operation, it's an actual operation. The nearest liquefaction that happened here was at the bottom end of Honeypoo Springs Road. Why I know that is because I owned the property. And that was quite a significant liquefaction, to be honest, shooting 30 feet in the air. But what concerns me more than anything is, as Michaela just said, building consents, more costs, having to get geotech reports and the likes. That's the part that really concerns me a bit on this one. But yeah, it's, I can totally concur with some of the issues that with liquefaction if you're in, say, Edgecombe or those sort of places. But yeah, goodness, it's even got where Malcolm Campbell lives here. With liquefaction there, we're going to have a real problem. But yeah, okay. It's a good question, eh? And a real concern.
Yeah, I was concerned about it, that it is desktop, but the other thing, as Worship alluded to, is the extra costs. And I know they've got to be careful and all this sort of thing, but it would have been nice if some actual tests could have been done. But I will certainly, when I have more time, is to go in and read the reports. And thank you for giving us the links for those. Yeah. Okay, the other thing that I had a concern about is on page 4, 8.2. And I look at the rather large cost for the Eastern Bay Spatial Plan. And bearing in mind that we're probably going to incur another extremely large cost when the regional one is done. It seemed to be an extremely high cost. And I just sort of wonder, you know, compliance costs are just killing things nowadays.
This is for the Eastern Bay, so there's parties to this. This is the full cost, well, the full estimated cost. It will include the Regional Council, Whakatane District Council, ourselves, and then hopefully other people that want to be involved, like NZTA and those other parties, should, if they want to be involved in it, they will help contribute towards this. It is a substantial cost. It is a requirement that we get a spatial plan completed. So it's just determining what we can put towards that. We've, at this stage, there's been no set. Whakatane is fronting the first bit just to get it up and going underway, while we determine how we structure who pays what and what our contribution would be towards this. We have, because we've put the district plan off until next year, we have some money set aside for that. And it is a possibility that we could use that to contribute towards this spatial plan.
Have you got any idea of the possible scope of extra work over and above this one that will be required for the regional spatial plan under the RMA, under the new RMA?
It should, the spatial plan, because it takes in a good portion of the region, a lot of it should feed directly into that. So
Right.
there shouldn't be a lot of additional work. It would just be collating it all into one area as opposed to doing further work towards it.
Oh, well, that's it. That's good to know about that, but it's always a bit of a worry. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. I don't have any other further queries or comments tonight.
Councillor Julian.
Through
Any
the
further
chair.
questions?
Yeah, no, just thank you, councillor Julian, for asking those questions, because it had me a bit concerned too, and I have to say, $140,000 contingency is we're in the wrong job. Anyway, just the new bathing water quality sign, please, can I, is this just something that regional council have come up with, or is it, is there really some concerns about down there? Because it does, you know, there's a lot of swimming done south of the Tamarangi Bridge, particularly there, and all the way up, actually, all the way to Sandy Bay. It's yeah, I'm just wondering if there is some concerns. The other thing is, do that when they do test a water sample, and how they will report that to us if there is a concern, if there is a contamination.
We get daily reports from the regional council advising of the water levels to ensure that they're under the required amount. And based on that, that's when we would go out and change the sign if there was any concerns for the water quality. This has been in place for a long time. It's not new, it's just the sign is new so that we can better advise the public.
Know me.
So my time here, I don't recall ever there being an issue with it.
Is it more than, do I understand they're more concerned about if the water level drops?
It's E. coli in the water. Essentially, it's just safety around any bacteria.
Through the chair, please, can I just understand, is that a water level notification from regional council or a water composition contamination risk that's
Water
notified?
quality.
Yeah, water quality.
Water quality.
Okay.
And they sample it every day?
From the reports, I review the reports. It appears at the moment they sample it weekly, but they provide us a report every day. And the peak period of concern is over the summer. So over the summer, if they indicate levels rising, they will do further testing as required.
Right. No, it's just when we see a sign put there, what's happening here? Was there something new? So, okay, that's pretty much as far as contamination goes. We see all the time.
Is that just one sign? Is it just that Voice Park area? Or is it the whole area of Sandy Bay where that is? Does that cover the whole area, that one sign?
But one sign has been located there because that's where they complete the testing. They don't test any further upstream.
Fair enough.
That's where they do the testing.
I could imagine what happens upstream could pollute Voice Park area. I'd be a bit
Couldn't imagine that at all.
Moving along, even that was the wrong word.
And just one question of clarification. Now, K-Town Community Animal Welfare Society, are they the people that have taken over from SPCA? Is that right? So Julia? Okay, that's fine. It's just. Do a great job too, I must say. So good on.
Through the chair, please, on page 2, item 3, just great to see some interest in the Eastern Bay Committee from Kawerau. Always good to hear that there's some representation on the Eastern Bay joined up committee. So I see we've had a report tabled just earlier this morning, and we'll find out a bit more about that. I just wonder, please, Chair, on item 4, similar to Councillor Julian, really happy to see that for the community of Kawerau, just a message out to look for these licenses. We've got, I've seen a number of mobile traders stream in and out of Kawerau, particularly over COVID. So it would be good just to give an assurance of safety quality. Really hard to get medical help at the moment, so that won't be helped if you're actually buying food from an unlicensed trader. So just a message out to everyone to look for that. Just that last paragraph, please, on page 2, with the follow-up from audit. That's just a follow-up. There weren't any concerns. That's just a regular follow-up as part of the audit that Ian did with Whakatane. That's just a
Well, it's
question.
just a regular follow-up. It's just to ensure that the agreement, they just want to talk to me about the agreement between us and Whakatane to ensure that it's actually working as it's set up to do.
Very good. And just on page 3, item 6.2, we've seen the, I won't call it frightening map, but not surprising, the consultation map that we're all living on liquefaction land. I just have a question about geotech, please. So it's not just for new builds, but for additions, I read. That may be just a message that's not broadly understood, that if you're doing some alterations to your house, that it's just good to come and check. And just around the availability and timing of geotech specialists, if people are looking to either build new or have alterations done to their home, do we know what their availability looks like? Are they there, or you just go and ask, and how does one find a geotech person?
That's a really good question, and it's something I can't answer off the top of my head. I do understand their availability is going to be stretched because this is across the country as of the 29th of November. So they'll have a lot more work that is required.
Thank you. Maybe Ian can help us out, but Chair, that was really just with everything and the current climate being stretched on hold, delayed and all that sort of stuff. If you're looking to do particularly alterations, it's a given if you're doing new, but for alterations, just give it more time than less because it's harder to find. Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions of the report? So out of the report, we just have an action item for our newsletter with regards to licence to occupy, just advertising around that. That would be great to have that in there. Okay, so can I take, we have a recommendation committee.
I'm happy to move.
I've just taken mover, Councillor Savage.
Oh, sorry,
We may have a seconder, please.
I'll second.
Councillor Julian. Thank you, councillors. We have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? The item is carried. Thank you. Moving into part B, non-regulatory, item number 2. Not the report. Finance and corporate services. Numbers 5 through to 10.
I just have 2 points, Madam Chair. On page 6, under payments, I see that we once again have quite a substantial bill for waste management. Now this would be about 3 months running, and we've never actually had that before until just recently. Are we collecting more rubbish, or what's the explanation for the extra cost, please? You could answer.
So we've been consistently, Madam Chair, we've been consistently between 38 and 48,000 in the last 2 years. It just depends on the number of weeks in the month that affects that. With the increase in the levies and increase in the costs, we now got very close to 50. So this is just not the first time that we just breached the 15 that gets reported. But there appears to be a bit more rubbish than in the past. It might have to do with the fact that we're starting to audit the green waste bins more and looking at the other things, that people are more circumspect in what they put in which bin. So we're probably seeing an increase in the refuse we collect, that some bus would have been put in the green waste or the recycling bins. So that's the only explanation I can come up with that can explain why we this, but it's not that much. It's about a 10% increase. That's why we see it now regularly.
So Hannah, on the back of that question, and probably over to Peter, are we within budget is probably the question for the 21-22 year. How are we tracking there?
Look, I'll have to. give you a
Sorry, can we
report
just
on that.
check that? Maybe we can just check the behind the scenes. That's probably more important, because I mean, if we're within, if we're tracking, then I don't have a concern there, and rubbish has to go.
We are slightly over so far, but not much.
So the committee happy with that? Yep.
I think it's something we do need to sort of keep an eye on, because it would have, as Councillor Iron alluded to, it will have budget implicant things for next year. Okay, and the other thing, which was to do with rubbish as well, is a service for request, page 7, item 5. I was quite surprised to see that in the rubbish bins collection that there were 16 items which are outstanding and are being processed or progressed. I would have thought that, you know, if you ring up with a complaint, it's dealt with instantly. I was quite surprised to see the number that is still needing to be attended to.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Look, it really depends on when they come in. If they come in right at the end of the month, a lot of the requests, they won't have a chance to have their new bin issued or whatever they're asking for. It's usually new bins or replacement bins for broken ones, or an extra bin, an increased size of bin. So as you can see, there's quite a significant number of requests that we had during the month, and I'm just picking these are the ones that were made right at the end of the month and hadn't had a chance to actually complete them, or they might have been completed, but they just hadn't been closed off until the next day.
I don't have any further things that I wish to raise.
For the Chair, please, on page 5, just item 1. Yeah, I was surprised to see the power cut was the cause of the internal Wi-Fi router. Was that a power surge, and has that been resolved? It was just a question. It just took a couple of weeks to get that going.
Look, it was the power surge that initiated it, and it's been a bit of time waiting for it to get service people in to fix it. It is up and running now. That's my understanding anyway.
Just wondered that, Chair. And great to see that both the library and ISAF are supporting vaccination pass assistance. That's really handy for people to access. Please, on page 6, Chair, the museum. I just wonder if we have visitor numbers. So we get it through the eyesight, but for all the exhibitions or whatever's available to see, Do we have any idea of how many visitors we're having?
Well, the museum internal display is through the library, so it's very, we don't have a counter on that part of the building, so some of our visitors that come through the library building actually go through into the museum display area.
Chair, page 6, item 3.2, not sure how many applications, but great to see we're not hugely undersubscribed for the creative community. Got a balance of 21 and applications for about 15. So good to see that. There's been a lot of work by the committee to really push that and encourage applications. And just please on page 8, just that last item there, noting the forward notice service is looking to run out possibly around about March next year, possibly, depending on how we go on track, Pete. So given that we start back the council business in February, there'll be a really quick turnaround in terms of making some decisions and getting some lending in place. So thank you for that forward notification.
Madam Chair, just carrying on from Councillor Tunui, 3.2 Creative Community Fund. Just an acknowledgement again, I know we've said it time and time again, but just acknowledgement to Creative New Zealand. They have allowed us to roll over the allocated funding, and from there we'll still top up in May. So, and that was all down to the unprecedented time. So they acknowledge the applications, and also for the reports that come in, they've acknowledged that an extension is available to those accountability reports. They've given an extension there as well to allow them to meet the, not so much the timeframes, but the vision of the original applications that were put in. So thank you, Creative New Zealand, on behalf of the Kauro community. Also, thank you to the volunteer committee members who make themselves available to come in, but also to behind the scenes review the criteria to make sure that our applications are honoured. Sometimes they do extra homework behind the scenes just to make sure the applications are validated from where they're coming from. So I just want to thank the committee members for being there for our community again.
Any questions for the report? If there been none?
Chair, just only one comment on page 7. All the avid readers didn't pick up 866,000 million.
Oh, yes. No, I thought I'd leave it there.
I thought, what are we worried about? We've got heaps. Thank you. Move the report if nobody else.
Happy to move the report.
Mm.
We have
It's a second.
and we have a seconder, Councillor Kingy. So with that, we have a recommendation committee, a mover and a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Item is carried. Item number 3 for this morning, monthly report, operations and services in November.
Just to review, Chair, on page 12, item 2, I see that sadly there's been a breach wastewater treatment. Can you give us some further detail on that?
Yes, we have about breach now once every 6 weeks or so. Just that there's still small hiccups. So we take the minimum flow from Wying, it's about under 100 cubes a day, so it's operational. But that's still sufficient if they have a major problem or something goes wrong. We might go over. The bridges are very low. For the specific bridge, this one was the limit was 100. It was 104 again. So in the month of this was in October, so it was the month of November. So we have one about every 46 weeks that has happened. So there's not much we can do about that. We want to keep them operating. So more feedback on this for the staff.
So Hannah, sorry, I might pay to do this when you're talking. So we're talking trade waste again?
Yes, it's not in the trade waste.
It's a concern. Yeah,
We will discuss this later on the staff.
Yeah,
today.
Progress was, yeah, okay. Probably if we could just remove our
Yeah.
masks when we talk, please.
The next one is under vandalism, and it's obviously the graffiti situation continues, but do we use a contractor for removal? I presume we do. Of graffiti.
Yes, we do use the contractor to remove that.
Following councillor Sparks, I've just got here, are they photographed and sent on to Hill Police across the road? Sorry,
Yes, madam, we do have a report, well, yes and no. One, we do have a report from the contractor where every piece of graffiti is photographed, else not just bill us. So every piece of graffiti is photographed and included in the monthly report. So we get that, but we currently don't report it to the police all the time.
I think that's quite important because there is a pattern and they will know, after a while, they get to know who the artist is. And it's a good way of actually pinging them. The other thing, if it's happening on council walls, I think that this is a good little exercise where we can talk to a friendly group of artists or young people and get them to put in an application to Creative New Zealand Fund, and a mural could be painted on the wall, because particularly if it's being graffitied all the time, I think if it's got a mural on it and if we can somehow or other nab some of the graffiti artists, then they own it and it doesn't get touched after that. But it's certainly some projects which we could look at. So it would be good to know the walls which are being pinged, because they're probably being pinged all the time. Yep.
any further questions of the report?
Yes, I have a few things, Madam. I just wonder on page 12, under item 3, while we're doing the roading, the footpaths and everything and cleaning up areas, I just wonder if we can have a bit of a go at some of our internal traffic islands. They're growing quite a lot of vegetation on them at the moment, and it just looks a little bit unsightly. And if we go back to page 11, 1.1, we've obviously had quite a bit of rain lately, because if you have a look at the November water compared to the other few years, although last year it was a bit lower, but we seem to be considerably lower. So I'm taking it that everything is working, all the meters are working, so we know exactly how much water is being used. And on page 13, can we just have an update for item 6 and how the drilling went and how that's processing into the pool, please?
The well was completed on Thursday. It was linked up to the steam exchanger on Friday, and on Friday evening we started in the pools. So the pools are heated now from approximately Sunday. So we're monitoring it. Currently the steam coming from the well is quite clean. So we have not experienced, up until right now, we have not experienced problems with the exchanger that I'm aware of. But we'll be monitoring it for the next, well, continuously monitoring it to make sure that the new well performs as we expect.
Okay, thank you. And can we have an update in item 10 on the erection of the fences in Valley Road and Hilldale Reserve, please?
It started, but we still have some material short, and then the contractor had problems, so this is a bit delayed. The first work started, but then they stopped again. So I'll catch up this week if we can get this done for Christmas.
Excellent, thank you. And I do notice some bollards are up. I don't know if it's been completed yet, but it's good to see some yellow poles. I have no further. Oh, yes, just one more. We talk about, on the jobs, we talk about the Christmas tree lights are all completed and done, no cost, but our Christmas tree's not going. Oh, please. And I go by quite frequently at night to find out if they've been lit.
Some electrical problem. We've contacted Judge and Gold for us, so I thought it was fixed. Yeah, no, I'll definitely follow it up that it's done.
Thank you.
So we have an action item out of that, one large Christmas tree. Right, please. Any further questions on the report committee? If there are none, can I ask for a mover? Thank you, Councillor Savage, for the recommendation. And the seconder, please, Councillor Strike. Seconder for the recommendation, all those in favour? Aye. All those against? The item is carried. The last item of this morning's agenda of this meeting, item number 4, monthly report, economic and community development, pages 17 through to 20.
This is for you, Madam Chair. Well done to our 2 COVID and ambassadors. And they've got the current youth members on board as well. But I believe that those pop-up clinics are going very well and very popular. And also good to see on page 17 that there's a bit of action happening for our container terminal. So that's good news.
Through the chair, please, on page 17. Item 2, just a huge thanks to the eyesight. 345 people assisted with that vaccine pass. That's huge. I just want to thank the team. That's been a process that we've all been involved in, whether it was voluntarily or not voluntarily, but to have that assistance available is really neat for Lonnie and the team at the eyesight. On page 18, please, Chair, item 3. Was probably surprised. Really just surprised is the only word in terms of the neutral stance of the neighbourhood support. It may not have been conveyed well, but it's actually an entire community COVID-19 response and readiness program. It wasn't just about the vaccination, so I don't know if that message can be shared to the neighbourhood support, just to give the broader view of what exactly it is that that community group are doing. It's not just about the vaccination, that's just a part of the conversation. Chair, and just wanted to meet to the Youth Council. I got some compliments about a really cool video they had, a really simple video about COVID readiness through the eyes of a young person. Sometimes it's good to revisit that space, it's a lot more simpler when you're younger, but I just wanted to meet to the Youth Council for, despite our COVID disrupted year, that they did continue to meet as a young youth council and discuss things in the way that young people do. Very simple, they don't get burdened or laboured with what could go wrong, all they see is what could go right. And lots of compliments for their virtual Young Achievers Awards as well, Chair. Yep. That's all from me, thank you.
Just on the back, sorry, just on the back of that, I'll just see if we track back to page 6 in your report, Peter. There's a mention of the council's new cadet in there, and he's got his name in this report as well, so well done for that. So I'd just like to acknowledge the versatility of staff, because that's what it's all about, whether you're young, middle-aged, or a bit more than middle-aged. Yep, so I'd just like to acknowledge Stephen Ong, if I can pronounce that right.
It's a pleasure, young chap.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well done. And Councillor Sparks, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Over to you.
Just on page 17, the motorhome power users, I see the decrease, which is understandable, but of course, I think we're going to see a quite likely, maybe substantial increase with the Auckland release, so to speak. So, you know, I guess we're we'll be prepared for that. And that'll probably impact on toilet use. And also, I just wonder with Fairman Lodge, whether that's going to impact on the usage as well. Yeah, no,
Through the chair, could Fairman Lodge, since August, has had a number of cancellations, and we're continuing to see that. The hope is that once the traffic light system starts to change for the better, then things will move back in the right sort of direction. As you can appreciate, when people are looking at it and it's family reunions or it's events, then they're relying on people coming from the Auckland region. So it makes it quite difficult for them to be able to continue with their booking. So we have seen a trend of cancellations since August.
wait and see.
Second,
I'm happy to move, Chair, if there's nothing.
you're happy to move? No further questions, committee? No. Okay, you keep your more to move. And a seconder, please. Thank you, councillor Savage. We have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? The item is carried. Everybody, that's the closing of this meeting for this morning at 9:42.